Hello, today we're going to talk about black and white photography. I'm going to show you some of my black and white concert photography. I'm going to take you through my workflow in Lightroom, and I'm also going to show you how in Lightroom you can very easily have two sets of pictures from the same concert, one in color, one in black and white. Now there's a great tradition of really amazing black and white concert photography, and part of that of course is that the entire history of concert photography, a lot of it was shot on film. Back in the day, a fast black and white film was pretty much your only option for shooting at these low light concerts. And if you want to study this, if you want to buy a book about it, you got to get this, Neil Preston's book, Exhilarated and Exhausted. By far the best book that's ever made about concert photography, and it also features an incredible amount of really beautiful film black and white work. Of course, nowadays we have digital cameras and they're really good at high ISO at capturing colors as well. So you can do a color set and you can also do a black and white set. We're bringing home raw data from the concert and we can do whatever we like. For me, a concert is like a series, it's a story. So I don't pick out individual shots inside of this concert and make them black and white and have others in color. It's either entirely in color or it's entirely in black and white. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's look at Lightroom. Now I have made some black and white pictures that have actually kind of become known. And I've been lucky enough, for example, with this one, the Anderson .Paak picture, that it won Music Photo of the Year 2018 in the GAFA magazine. And this particular picture was definitely one where I looked at it right away in color and I said, that needs to be a black and white. This is the color version. And I looked at it and went, that is an incredible situation. I really love the action, the motion, the light, and the composition, but I don't like the colors. It's extremely hazy, and we just have this weird mixture of kind of purplish blue, orange stuff going on. So this had to be high contrasty black and white. Same with the mirror picture that a lot of you may know. Now this one is actually really nice. In color, there's nothing wrong with this. This is kind of more or less the color original, and it totally works. And again, I will have delivered a set in color, so I'm kind of making the black and white after I've made the color set. I'll show you how. But if we look at this totally works in color. You could add a bit more contrast and stuff, but the color is quite nice in this picture. But again, there's such a iconic shape to this ponytail and the motion of it and the light that it really screams out as well to me for a black and white picture. So let's take this an example and look at how I make my black and white pictures. And they're really very, very simple. I'm not a very advanced black and white converter. I don't use Nick Silver effects or anything like that anymore. I simply just use a little bit of Lightroom. Now the first thing I would do is change the camera profile, of course, to something that's black and white. And you have the built-in monochrome, which is simply just a flat black and white. If you're using Fujifilm, you're lucky enough to have all these wonderful black and white film simulations that I can choose. And you can see they greatly do different things to the image. And again, the same with the black and white presets that are built into Lightroom. They're all starting points anyway, so just pick the one that you want to start with. I'm just going to pick the monochrome right now because we're just going to start out flat like this. Now it's always based usually on a color version, so it already has some of the settings here. I'm going to run through them anyway, because again, I don't do a lot to it. The color temperature, now that is a vital thing, even on a black and white image. Why? Well, because now you're simply sort of sliding up and down the various levels of color in the image. And that means if you're reducing the amount of blue, you're also reducing the light level of the blue. So if I change this up here, you will see that the sky and everything else, it kind of varies because I'm changing the color. If we just swap it back, there's a shortcut, the V key, to the color profile. You can see what I'm doing here. And what I'm actually looking for, sometimes I will actually set this in the color version. I just want it to be somewhere where there's an actual color separation. So you have sort of orange here and you have blue. Because I can work with that when we go to the monochrome. Now I know this is actually blue and this is orange. So I'm kind of basing this, you can even go auto. That probably works, you just want a neutral. Neutral setting, usually. Then we have exposure, you know. You can change that up and down, or you can use the curves or any other sliders, and just use sliders any way you like. Forget what they're called, they're just algorithms that do stuff to the image. Shadows up and down. I don't do a lot of this, I usually do some clarity, and you can usually whack a bit more clarity onto black and white if you like. Be careful though, it does add noise. You can also use the new texture slider, which is also clarity, just clarity in like smaller, sort of in between sharpness and clarity. Again, they're just names of algorithms. Now here's the fun part, the curves and the black and white mix sliders. These are important. Now the curves, I want to whack some more contrast onto this because I like contrasty black and white. And I really like the blacks to be deep black and crushed. So we're going to do it like this. You see that that curve is really, and I could, depending on how much I want the beam blown out, I don't really care that much about the beam being blown out. It's already very bright and supposed to look bright. You could probably recover some of this if you wanted to, but that does look dull. You want it to be really bright and in your face. What I don't want to is sort of blow out details up here. That's really what I'm looking for. This is also what we can do down here actually, because now we're reducing or we're playing with the light levels. For example, this is the orange, so there's a lot of skin tone, and you can see how it goes up and down in luminance value, and you can make it really, really ugly. You could burn it out. So these affect different areas of the picture, of course. Remember that the sky was blue. So if you turn down the blue, let's just zoom out, naturally the sky gets darker because we're taking blue content out of the picture. I want it a little bit darker, but not too dark. You can make it all like completely crazy dark. That's whatever you like, but I want it about here. So the curves and the black and white mix, I find, are two of the things that I use the most when I make black and white pictures. And you're really looking for separation of tones. Now you have an image that is just nothing but grayscale. So you don't want the whole thing to kind of mash together in the middle. You want to separate them with contrast. You also want to separate, for example, the sky. You don't want the sky to be as bright as the orange part, the skin tones, because they will mash together. You'd want it to actually go in the other way. So you get a nice separation. And the final thing that I do really to the black and white image is I paint in some light, because you can do this more in black and white because you're not screwing up the color, you're just playing with light levels. So let's scroll to the top. Let's take the paintbrush and I'm just gonna whack it up to crazy levels of exposure so you can see what's going on. And I'm gonna paint light under the crowd. I'm gonna bring that out a little bit, or a lot. That's of course is widely overdone, but at least I can see what I'm doing. You can paint in some over here as well. There we go. And then you can just lower it down a bit. Maybe like this. Yeah, that's not. A little bit more over here. So you can play with all of this, and you can paint several layers on top of each other. You can also paint in clarity or whatever you like, but this is very, very handy. It's essentially dodging and burning from the old darkroom. And this is very good. For example, if I wanted to bring out a little bit more of her leg here, I can just paint that in. And it doesn't look wacky because you only change luminance levels, you're not changing colors. So that's what I like about black and white photography, is that you can actually sculpt the image a lot more. So you can have a lot of fun using this paintbrush. I use that a lot with black and white. And that's really my black and white workflow. It is super simple. I don't do that much to the black and white images. And let me just show one which is not so nice in color. This particular image, I think totally rocks in black and white. A bit challenging in color. It needs work in the color version. Now I can make a color version that's okay here, and I have, because I've delivered that. But my favorite from this whole series is the black and white series of this show, and particularly this image. So if we were going to take this and do the same thing to it, I would do the same thing. Just take the monochrome, and right away, you know, you got all that distracting blue LED light. And LED lights have a very narrow band of color, so it's essentially one shade of blue that's very, very saturated, that hits all the haze in the air and gets even more saturated, picked up by digital sensors and gets wildly saturated. Did I mention saturated? And you can combat this in color, and I will make a tutorial on that. But in a black and white image, you don't have to deal with that. You're just reducing it now to the nice luminance levels, and that looks quite nice. And you can play then with the white balance, and it's essentially all blue, this image, remember, in the color version. But if you really warm it, you can tell all of a sudden that you're kind of changing the majority of the luminance to be in the blues to being in the warm, meaning more of the skin tones. I probably just want it somewhere in the middle where it's not sort of burning out anything. And then I will just add maybe a bit more clarity to this because it's black and white and I can beat it up a bit more. I will play some more with this. Remember, I'm basing it on the color version, but you need to develop it, the black and white version, separately. It's not just subtracting the colors, because that makes it very flat and boring. So I want to crush the blacks a bit more, and already we're getting there. Now this time on this image, this black and white mix is not really going to help us much because the entire image is just blue. There was no other color in the original image than blue. There's nothing to affect except the blue channel. Like, it is entirely blue. There's nothing else. So you can't really get any help in separation of tones from this one. You can still paint on it though. So let's get the paintbrush, because I want to add some more light here, just so he's like kind of brought out a bit more from that background. And you can do the reverse if you wanted to. Let's make a new one and then just make it really dark, so you can take out a little bit of the stuff around here. Kind of maybe is distracting. And you can paint some of the bright spots away. And this is important part of black and white, is that you're controlling the eye through light only. You have no colors to attract the eye. You have to really look at where are the bright spots in the image. That's where your eye is going to go. So that ended up being a quite nice black and white, very simple. And that's basically all I do. It's pretty simple, my black and white stuff. There's really no magic to it. And it's really reserved for pictures where it may even look nice in color, but there's a certain graphic element to it, or a certain beautiful light beam. Something that makes me want to go, this could look really nice in black and white. And as I said, I don't really do like individual pictures only as black and white. Then I make a complete series of a color set and a black and white set of a concert. Some concerts are just meant to be color. Like this one, this is clearly a color show for me. So I'm not going to take pictures, individual pictures in here and turn black and white just because some of them may be suited. I'm not going to do that. It's either going to be all color, all black and white, or both. And the way to do both, I'm just going to show this here at the end. Here we have a color concert, or a little part of a color concert anyway, for this tutorial. And I've made a very desaturated color version. You can see the vibrance slider is way down. And why didn't I use saturation slider? Because they both do saturation. They just do it in different ways. And the vibrance slider does it in a nicer way than the saturation. And again, forget the names, they're just sliders. But I want to make a black and white set as well. I've now done the color set. So what do? We just go select all. Oh, by the way, notice that they're all green. And you can color label your pictures in Lightroom, which is quite handy. You can just simply right click and go set color label and then label them to a color. So if I select all, Command A, set color label to blue, they're all blue. And why would I want them in different colors? Because you can have different virtual copies of the same raw file. This is an amazing feature. What does that do? Well, it means select all, right click, virtual copy, create virtual copy, and I now have a copy of every image, but it didn't make a copy of the raw file. You don't need two raw files, because remember that all of this is non-destructive. It is actually just a set of developments that is applied to the raw file. And naturally you can have copies of these. You can have many sets of developments. That's essentially what a virtual copy is. So think of it as the base picture is just simply the data, the raw file at the bottom. And then you just, you're just like all of these different recipes, you're just applying to it. And then you can do an export in color, you can do an export in black and white, but you don't have to have 10 copies of every raw file. It's a really brilliant feature. And you can use it for this, for making a black and white set and a color set of the same concept. So now we have, see, copy, copy, copy. I'm just gonna right click now because I want a different color label. Let's say yellow for my black and white pictures. But hang on, they're not black and white yet. No, but we're gonna do that. And I'm just gonna cheat now. I'm not gonna go through every one of them and do the same again. I'm just gonna go preset and go black and white, high contrast or whatever. And it just whacked that onto these images. It looks kind of crap, but it doesn't matter. It illustrates the example. The ones we had selected here, they're now all going to be black and white as soon as it updates all the previews. And this means now we have the blue ones in color, the yellow ones in black and white. And now, of course, you will just go through, you can develop one at a time, and then just kind of go in and go, wow, that's really crappy, I need some more light, and do all the stuff we did before. And then you can use the filtering. You just click attribute, and then you can use these color filters here to go, let me see, all the blue ones. There we go, you got the color. Turn it off, then you got everything. Let me see the yellow ones. Then you got your black and white concert. And again, you only have one raw file for every picture. So for me, it starts out with, I have made a color set of a concert. And if I feel that this is definitely a concert that I want a black and white set of as well, remember I do entire shows, not just single pictures. I just make virtual copies, and then I just have a black and white and a color set very, very easily in Lightroom. That is a really strong, powerful feature. I think that's all for now for black and white. It's pretty simple stuff. Remember the one of our virtual copies, that is a great thing about doing both black and white and color at the same time. Shoot me any questions you may have, and see you next time.